Small victories. Had a bad fitting. I thought it was the motor, but it was the fitting. I'll let that run for a little bit. This is going to be a short little video, and it falls into the category you can't make this stuff up. Okay, so I bought this ALCO. That's what's remaining of it right there, from a local flea market guy. Has trains all over the place, and brought it home, set it on the track, and it ran. Put it on the track with a couple of other locomotives, like I do, as a DPU type thing, and the other locomotives weren't getting any amperage at all. They could hardly even move. So it became quickly apparent that this B&M was pretty much sucking down all the electricity, not leaving anything for the other ones. Now, trying to figure out why that would be. It's kind of confusing, not being a train guy and all. Started looking at the motor. This is how it was wired up. This one here went to the pickup, and this went to the chassis as a ground. And if you were to look at that, it's a single wound coil, and effectively what you have here is feed going in, positive going in, going right to the brushes and also right to the coil, and then the tail end of the coil going to ground and the other side of the brushes going to ground, effectively wiring those in parallel. That sink in for just a second. In parallel. For those who are not electrically educated, that means that both circuits are getting the same input and they're dumping to the same ground, and now you effectively have two parallel channels for the electricity to go from positive to ground. Two conduits. So, you know, I didn't really think about it too hard. I set it on my test transformer and had a temperature gauge on it and realized it got hot in a hurry. And what was getting really hot was up here. You can even see where it was beginning to melt a little bit, that cap. Didn't seem to bother the coil much, but this was getting really hot up in here. So I think what I'm going to do, if I can, is first show you that it runs in parallel. Not going to run it long because it gets hot in a hurry. How do you like this old monster right here? 1930s era transformer. Tell you what, that thing can really put out the amperage. So let's hook this right to ground, common to ground. Give this a little bit of juice. Watch the sparks. Actually, I want you to look at two things. The direction that it's running right now, watch what happens to the brushes. Basically what's happening, there's two parts of the story. One is running in this particular direction. When that screw gear on the motor starts pushing, it's pushing up into the brushes versus pushing down into the bushing, which is on this plate. So that's another deal. So This is wired in parallel and it's running backwards, which is not a bad deal. And when it runs backwards, that screw gear on the pinion gear on the axle pushes the armature up into the cap. So I'm going to do two things on this. One is I'm going to reverse the direction that it runs, and two, I'm going to put that set of brushes in series with the coil, not in parallel, and see if it doesn't run a little bit easier, a little bit cooler, and maybe a little more RPMs. Okay, same motor, now wired in series. What that means is I'm going to put the positive there. It's going to have to go through all through the one brush into the armature, out to this brush, into the input of the coil. It goes through the coil and goes out to ground. That would be in series. And plus I changed the direction of rotation of the motor. Watch this. I can actually cut the voltage in half and it'll still run. It'll run like that all day long. Nice and smooth. No pain or strain. Half the voltage of what it had before, but it's also not getting hot because it has the right resistance. That's not going to give you something you can see, but trust me when I tell you, it says 78 degrees, whereas before when I ran that, it was getting up around 150 degrees. So I've got another motor right here that's wired in parallel. So let's do the same thing, and you can see the temperature change on that one as well. See if you can see that. Oh yeah. So here, what we're going to do on this motor here is the same deal. We're going to run this one in parallel first. This works.